Vinicius Jr. is one of the best players in the world today and is among those tipped to win the Ballon d'Or. However, his performance for the Brazilian team is, to say the least, disappointing. I know, those are strong words and maybe I'm coming on a bit too heavy, but I have my points for that. Vinicius Jr., for the national team, is a kind of cancer, and his football performance is the size of a flea. I wonder how a player the size of Vinicius Jr., with so much skill and decision-making power, ends up not performing well in the Brazilian team. And I believe it doesn't have much to do with the weight of the shirt, since he uses the number 7 shirt that belonged to Cristiano Ronaldo and plays for Real Madrid. So, today's video is to discuss and try to discover why Vinicius Jr. is so different from what he is at Real Madrid in the Brazilian team. Vinicius Jr. is coming off one of the best seasons of his career for Real Madrid, being the most decisive player of the European season, even though he missed part of the games due to an injury that kept him out for 3 to 4 months. During this time, Real Madrid's leading role was Jude Bellingham, but with the return of Vinicius Jr., the Brazilian star began to gain confidence and be more decisive, surpassing Bellingham in the second half of the Champions League final. It was clear that Vinicius Jr. would win the Ballon d'Or, just needing to perform well for the Brazilian team, where he always had difficulties. These difficulties are not goals, poor numbers for a player who stands out worldwide at Real Madrid, the biggest club in the world. There is no clear answer to that, as at Real Madrid he is a monster. Perhaps Vinicius Jr.'s main difficulty in the national team is adapting to the coach's tactical system. During Tite's time, he was stuck on the left wing, without much freedom. With the interim coach, whose name is irrelevant, he was also stuck, disappearing in friendlies against Senegal and Morocco. With Fernando Diniz, the situation got worse, with Diniz's unfavorable playing style. And we saw Vinicius Jr.'s worst performance, disappearing in games and providing ridiculous moments. No player performed well with Diniz, except Rodrigo, who can play in several positions. With Dorival Jr., the selection changed and so did Vinicius Jr. Dorival centralized Vinicius more, taking advantage of his dribbling and explosive ability, but he still hasn't found his place in the team, playing poorly and being criticized, even though he is more centralized. Vinicius Jr. provides ridiculous moves in the national team, which seem easy at Real Madrid, leaving the doubt as to when he will actually start playing for the national team. Gabriel Martinelli, with fewer appearances for the Brazilian national team as a starter, has practically the same number of goals as Vinicius Jr., which is ridiculous. Vinicius Jr. is not the only Real Madrid player who has had a bad time with the Brazilian national team. Marcelo also had the same problem, never playing well for the national team and being removed from the main squad early, no longer being called up and not playing any more matches, apart from that own goal in the 2014 World Cup. Another point that affects Vinicius Jr. is the team's midfield, which is far from ideal. The difference is stark when we compare the precise passes of players like Toni Kroos or Luka Modric at Real Madrid with the frequently missed passes of André Pereira or Lucas Paqueta on the Brazilian national team. This disparity in quality in midfield is a major obstacle for Vinicius Jr., who relies heavily on good passes to develop his game. Lucas Paqueta, in particular, has faced problems off the field that appear to be affecting his performance. The decision to keep him as a starter is controversial as he is clearly not in his best form. When a midfielder is not well, it inevitably has repercussions on the entire team, especially on players who depend on their creativity and precision to receive the ball in a good position to attack. Vinicius Jr. needs a solid and reliable midfield to shine. At Real Madrid, he benefits immensely from the skill and vision of players like Kroos and Modric, who know how to place the ball exactly where he needs it. In the Brazilian national team, the lack of this quality in midfield means that Vinicius is often isolated and unsupported, making it difficult for him to show his true potential. I hope Vinicius Jr. doesn't end up like Marcelo, another great talent who never managed to replicate his best performances for Real Madrid in the Brazilian national team. Marcelo, one of the best fullbacks in the world, had a tendency to advance too far and was unable to return in time to fulfill his defensive duties, which often left the defense exposed. The lack of balance between attacking and defending was one of the factors that harmed his career with the national team. For Vinicius Jr. to avoid the same fate, it is crucial that the Brazilian team finds a midfield that can effectively support his style of play. The team needs midfielders who can provide accurate passes, create opportunities, and give Vinicius the freedom to use his speed and dribbling ability. Without this foundation, even the best players can appear mediocre. Brazil has players like Vinicius Jr. in the Brazilian national team, players with decision-making power, but their decision-making power in the national team is not the best. At Real Madrid, he destroys and is the best player. I hope he improves and wins the Ballon d'Or this year, and that he does well in the Copa America. Thank you very much for your attention.